All right, it is preview time. We're getting started earlier this week because it is the playoffs. The stakes have raised. They've raised a lot. 49ers and the Packers. San Francisco's biggest advantage in this game comes with their offense, rated number one in the league. The 49ers put up nearly historically good numbers this season. Brock Purdy was sensational. He's got weapons across the board. That San Francisco advantage comes against Green Bay's defense, which has not been good at all. If you want to visualize the Packers defense this season, this is plotting pass defense efficiency and run defense efficiency on a graph. You want to be further to the right and further up. Green Bay is in the bottom left quadrant, which is where you don't want to be. They haven't been bottom barrel terrible, but they've been bad. And the DVOA, the defense adjusted value over average, this is EPA, so this is a different metric, but DVOA, which factors in opponent adjustments, which means strength of schedule. DVOA has the Packers ranked number 27 against the pass and number 27 against the run. So immediately you can see why the 49ers are favored in this football game by 10 points, despite the fact that Jordan Love and that Packers offense went off for 48 points against the Cowboys. So where exactly are the holes that the 49ers will try to attack? Well, I think that the two linebackers for the Green Bay Packers, Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker, they're not good in coverage at all. Devondre Campbell wears 59, so watch out for him. If you go back and watch the tape of the 49ers playing the Packers in the Snow Globe game a couple years ago at Lambeau Field, San Francisco, obviously, and Green Bay, too, both teams were struggling to throw the ball because of the conditions, how cold it was. It obviously started snowing there at the end of the game. But the 49ers needed to move the ball through the air to set up Robbie Gould for the game-winning field goal. And one of the plays that really sticks out to me is San Francisco splitting George Kittle out in the slot. Jimmy Garoppolo was at quarterback. This was an injured Jimmy Garoppolo, too, at the time. He had both the thumb and the shoulder injury. And he saw that Devondre Campbell, the linebacker, split out with George Kittle into man coverage. I'm not sure. I do need to go back and check with Kyle Shanahan on this one if Jimmy Garoppolo checked into that pass, but I think that he did on that drive. And then a nice little option route there with George Kittle took the inside leverage and Garoppolo made a good throw in the snow. It was a massive, massive first down early in that drive. Anyway, it's just an illustration of the matchup advantage that the 49ers have against the Green Bay Packers in the pass game with their tight ends and their running backs. Quay Walker, meanwhile, 500 pass yards allowed this season. Teams have tried to pick on Quay Walker even more than Devondre Campbell. And Campbell at one point was a decent coverage linebacker. 2 years ago, I think, was one of his best years in coverage, but the 49ers still picked on him. But he's over 30 years old now, and the 49ers have been going after linebackers like him and him in the past. So to me, the McCaffrey, Kittle, 49ers adaptable weapons, that's what is going to be the big weapon here against Green Bay, because the Packers are number 26 DVOA, defense adjusted value over average, when covering tight ends, and they're number 27 defense adjusted value over average when covering running backs. And what makes the 49ers offense special is they can keep you off balance with McCaffrey, with Deebo Samuel, both getting after it in the pass game. Now, to get to that point, the 49ers are going to have to neutralize the best players on this Packers defense up front. That's Rashawn Gary coming off the edge and Kenny Clark, the big defensive tackle, trying to blow things up the middle. If you remember the Week 3 game in 2021, that was the 7 seconds of fury unleashed by Aaron Rodgers at the end of the game to set up Mason Crosby for the game-winning field goal after the 49ers had come back. If you remember, Kenny Clark was a one-man wrecking crew in that football game. He blew up a screen, and that was the play where Jimmy Garoppolo kind of threw backwards or fumbled or whatever. But that's the point of the moral of the story was that Kenny Clark was in Jimmy Garoppolo's lap before he even looked up. And that's what Kenny Clark can do to a game. He's a game wrecker on the inside. Clark ranks number 10 in pass rush productivity amongst all defensive tackles. So he's not quite an elite pass rusher, but he's a very, very good one. He's on the cusp of being an elite pass rusher there on the inside. And there is some symmetry here in that Rashawn Gary, the Michigan product who's been around for a few years now, Rashawn Gary's also number 10. This amongst edge rushers in pass rushing productivity. So both Gary and Kenny Clark can really get after it. They still have Preston Smith on the other side. It's not the Smith tandem anymore. It used to be Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith now with Minnesota. So it's Rashawn Gary, who's the edge rusher that's going to be working primarily against Colton McKivitz. We've seen about 500 or 450 snaps for Rashawn Gary working against right tackle this year and about 110 to 120 snaps working on the left side. Colton McKivitz spoke today and said that he expects Rashawn Gary to be working primarily on his side. So this is McKivitz's big test. The playoffs are here. We know that he's not a great pass protector. We know he's been better run blocking than in pass protection, but Colton McKivitz has a chance this weekend to really prove a lot for the 49ers. If you want a fun fact, fun trivia, Colton McKivitz this season, the same exact pass block efficiency grade as Mike McGlinchey, but at a fraction of the cost. You saw the Denver Broncos pay Mike McGlinchey $87.5 million. The 49ers are only paying Colton McKivitz about $2 million per year. So looks like the 49ers definitely got the cost efficiency there right at the right tackle position. So when you look up and down the names on this Packers defense, those are the ones to keep an eye out for. Plus Jair Alexander and Darnell Savage. Jair Alexander is a good Pro Bowl caliber cornerback, but I mean, he's somebody you can ruffle his feathers a little bit. And I think that it's big that the 49ers have Jawan Jennings back. We know that San Francisco loves to run the ball. We know that Green Bay's number 27 DVOA against the run. So when you look at how the 49ers try to attack and you do look at that perimeter run game and you do look at receivers putting hats on hats, Jair Alexander is somebody that if you could fluster him a bit in the run game, or you could fluster him a bit in the yak game, yards after the catch, with Deebo Samuel being a bowling ball downfield, I think that you can get an advantage over this Green Bay secondary. Now, what Joe Barry, their defensive coordinator, is going to do is he's probably going to be aggressive, and he's probably going to try some of the same stuff as he did to shut down the Cowboys for at least part of the game to build that huge lead, and that's mix up some coverage combinations on the back end and maybe even disguise some stuff post-snap. But one thing that I would definitely caution people to look out for is Green Bay's blitzing. They have an 18.3% blitz rate under Joe Barry, which is the 6th highest in the NFL. That being said, the most effective quarterback in beating the blitz this year by a mile has been Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's averaging 10.3 yards per attempt against the blitz. Second highest in the league is 8.5. Jordan Love is also top 5 against the blitz, by the way. So we'll cover that when we look at Green Bay's offense against the 49ers defense. But Purdy, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions against the blitz. He's been awesome. The key is knowing the answer at the line of scrimmage in case the blitz does come. You can't be trying to figure out the answer on the fly against the blitz because it's going to hit you too fast. Now, I don't know if Barry's going to back off because Purdy has been so good, but I think that he'll at least dabble in some of this at the start of the game. He did mix up coverages post-snap against, if you go watch the tape against the Cowboys, there was a lot of zone run by the Packers. A lot of, I mean, it just, I thought he baited Dak Prescott into some of the mistakes that Dak made. It was 20-0 late in the first half. And I mentioned Darnell Savage, the safety, just crashed forward. And he was preying on one of those hook passes that Dak Prescott thought that he could get away with impunity. So as always, it's going to be up to Brock Purdy to play a clean game, make good decisions against the defense that in the postseason, these defenses take a step up. They will try even harder to fluster you, even harder to try to derail you post-snap with some machinations that you may not regularly see during the season. The good news for the 49ers is that the Packers didn't have a bye week. They had a win against the Dallas Cowboys this past week. So they had to empty out a lot of their defensive tricks to build up that lead. So Brock Purdy's going to have tape on that. He should know some of the stuff to prepare for, but I'm sure that Joe Barry's going to have some tricks up his sleeve. If it is a blitz, though, just know, and if there are a lot of blitzes, just know that Brock Purdy has been very effective against the blitzes this season. And the answer to the test against some of these blitzes may come by targeting Devondre Campbell, may come by targeting Quay Walker. Jair Alexander, probably see a share of him against Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers all-pro wide receiver. I would give the advantage to Brandon Ayuk. I'd give the advantage to the 49ers at essentially every single skill position. Green Bay's defense this year has not improved along with the offense and the rest of the team. Over the first 8 weeks of the season, the Packers ranked number 25 in defense EPA per play allowed. Since then, while the offense has surged to number 2, near the top of the NFL, right behind the 49ers, the defense has improved to number 20. So from number 25 to number 20, basically all that's happened is that the Packers are possessing the ball more on offense. Their possession's gone from number 28 in the league to number 2. And because of that, the defense is getting a little bit more rest, and the defense has been shielded on the sideline. So they haven't been as exposed, but they still have been below average. So looking at the Green Bay defense, if you can neutralize Kenny Clark, if you can neutralize Rashawn Gary, you look at the fact that Gary's going to line up against McKivitz. That's a big test for him. If you can, I mean, the 49ers interior line has had questions surrounding it all year, but if you can scheme your way around having to run into Kenny Clark or deal with him in pass protection all too often, I think that there are clear advantages for the 49ers on the second and the third levels of this Green Bay defense. And, you know, we talk about the interior 49ers line. Jake Brendel against Kenny Clark could be an issue for the 49ers. There have been plays this year where Jake Brendel has gotten pushed back into the backfield on and short runs. There's been some pass protection issues for the 49ers, especially over the right guard position. We'll see if they play Feliciano, if it's just Burford at right guard. Aaron Banks should be fully healthy now at that left guard spot. We'll see where they align Kenny Clark, or if they move him around, if they'll put him at that nose over the center position. But the Packers definitely have a game wrecker in number 97 on the inside, and the 49ers absolutely need to be prepared for him. But it's about winning up front so that you can take advantage of the weaknesses on the back end for this Green Bay Packers defense. So that's the preview for Brock Purdy's 49ers offense against the Packers defense. I'm going to answer some questions here in a second. Big piece on John Lynch and company dropping tomorrow on The Athletic. So be ready for that one. This is going to give you insight into the 49ers front office that I don't think that you've been able to read anywhere yet. So we'll have that coming tomorrow morning, maybe do a little bit of a show tomorrow. If it's a little sunny outside, I think the rain has stopped by now. Been waiting for the rain to stop before I go to dinner. But if we see some sun outside, maybe we can go check out Kezar Stadium tomorrow. It's playoff time, so I'm pulling out all the stops just like last season. All right, time for 49ers Q&A. Let's get after it. See what all you have to say. Mike says, smash that like button. I am here to answer some questions. And this is obviously 49ers offense against Packers defense. We have our chance to discuss the Packers offense against the 49ers defense, and that's going to be tomorrow. But hopefully you enjoyed some of the nuggets that I was able to drop over the course of that preview. We're trying to get to 70,000. That's what Eric Gomes says, and I agree with him. All right, we're talking Packers defense, guys. I see a lot of Armstead questions. I have a ton of updates up. I've answered all of those today, but this is a specific show. 49ers offense against the Packers defense. This is the big advantage that the 49ers have in this football game. Packers have a good offense. We know that. Jordan Love's been playing well. We know that. What the Packers don't do well is play defense, and that's what the 49ers need to capitalize on. How can the Packers slow down the 49ers offense? You can confuse Brock Purdy. That's the main thing. If you could catch him being too aggressive like the Ravens did early in that game, generate some takeaways. We saw Darnell Savage bait Dak Prescott into that big pick. We saw Jair Alexander make a really good play on an interception early on. That could put the 49ers behind the 8 ball, especially given how well Green Bay's offense is playing in this game. So it's really important that the 49ers play a clean game against the Packers. because if you play that clean game, then I think that you could play this on your terms, right? If you play this on your terms, again, I could go back to Devondre Campbell. I could go back to Quay Walker. The 49ers have big time advantages on the back end against the Green Bay team that's number 26 against tight ends and number 27 against running backs. Now, number 27 run defense DVOA too, but it is not as simple as just handing it off on every single down. You have to play the numbers if you're the 49ers. If it's a light box, you pass. You run. If it's a heavy box, then you're going to pass. And you play that yo-yo to make sure that you consistently have that numbers advantage. And that's what balanced offense and the play action game is all about. Brock Purdy has pulled the strings masterfully this year, and the 49ers are going to count on him continuing to do that in this game. Purdy can't sit back and let the run game take over if he doesn't set it up with his arm. The NFL is too good to let you do that. Only very, very occasionally can you just run it up the team's throat and expect constant success. Well, it happened for the 49ers against the Packers in the January 2019 NFC Championship game, but I think that Green Bay has gotten better defensively since then, a little bit tougher since then. That being said, the rankings aren't good this year, but that was embarrassing when the 49ers beat them in the NFC Championship game. You want my sandwich today? I didn't have a sandwich today, but I could give you yesterday's sandwich. Why don't we do that? It was from Les Sandwich. The chicken pesto artichoke sandwich. It was good right there in North Beach. That's a sandwich made by a Michelin star chef, by the way. Elias. Used to own a restaurant in downtown San Francisco called George. So that was the sandwich. I recommend it. It's on Columbus in North Beach. Really good bread too. Delicious stuff. So we'll have more food for you a little bit later this week. Maybe some deli board at some point, probably Friday if I do get out the deli board. It's a playoff week, so we got to bring out all the big guns. Packers are not a great defense. I think they're an average tackling team. Nothing great, but it could be a big day for Deebo. Depends on who's open, right? It depends on where the Packers focus their defensive efforts. But I think the 49ers will be in good position to have some open space against Green Bay in this game, just because they can beat them in coverage with their skill position weapons. Yeah, they've lost the step the Packers have. Devondre Campbell, 30 and a half years old. He used to be one of the faster linebackers in the league. I don't think he is anymore. I think he's lost that step. Again, we saw Kittle beat him with that inside leverage in the snow globe game. And I think that the 49ers are well positioned to take advantage of the geometry, right? When you look at San Francisco's offense, if they space things out correctly and Brock Purdy makes the right decisions, assuming that he has a reasonable amount of time to throw, I don't think that it's possible to cover all these 49er skill position weapons. Now, it's easier said than done to distribute and make the right decisions downfield. Undoubtedly, easier said than done. But just from a purely theoretical standpoint, the 49ers have so many weapons between McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle, Deebo Samuel, you name it, that I don't think you can cover them if the 49ers execute everything correctly. Now, easier said than done. Executing everything perfectly in a chaotic sport is tough, but there's a reason why the 49ers have the advantage in this game, and one of those reasons is their offense and all the weapons that Brock Purdy is throwing to and how effective Brock Purdy has been distributing the ball to those weapons. He's been playing MVP level football at the controls for the 49ers. Eric Gomes always summarizes things well. Pick your poison, Packers. Got to decide who to cover, who to double, who not to double, who's going to be open. Jawan Jennings back in the mix now for the 49ers. How did Green Bay expose the Cowboys so blatantly? Well, Dak Prescott isn't that good. Dak Prescott's very overrated. I was the first one telling you he should have never been an MVP candidate, should have never been an all-pro consideration. Brock Purdy is a lot better than Dak Prescott. Brock Purdy makes better decisions than Prescott. Prescott's decision-making was horrific in that first half. And the Darnell Savage interception buried the Cowboys. So Green Bay confused Dak Prescott after the snap. They changed some things around. They preyed on him with that zone defense. They were sitting on some of those short passes. Those were both of the interceptions were short passes. Brock Purdy's got to be smart enough to not fall victim to that kind of stuff. And the 49ers can help him out by neutralizing Rashawn Gary, by neutralizing Kenny Clark. You could send schematic help to Rashawn Gary. But you have to, if you're going to chip him, then Brock Purdy has to know that you're chipping him. He has to know where the answers to the test are. He's got to have that internal clock because Gary can get after the quarterback. Kenny Clark can. But I can't stop emphasizing that this is just not a great Green Bay defense. Poor against tight ends, poor against running backs, poor in general, 27 against the run, 27 against the pass. The 49ers are a historically good offense. Should not be an issue for this football team if they take care of the football. That is the key. Green Bay's in the bottom left quadrant. You don't want to be in the bottom left quadrant of this defensively. This is funny. Dak is Aikman without a run game. Obviously, Aikman had Emmitt Smith back in the day. I mean, Dak Prescott is who Dak Prescott is. He's a limited quarterback. I think he's always been limited. He's never blown the top off of any efficiency metric. He threw way too many interceptions last year with the 15 picks. Try to get more conservative this year so he wouldn't throw as many picks. But didn't really move the needle with anybody except for people voting for the All-Pro team. And that just kind of came out of nowhere. It was almost like they were reading Twitter 4 weeks ago when Twitter said Dak should be an MVP favorite, and then he just voted him to the All-Pro without watching the tape. It was uninspiring tape from Dak Prescott. It really was, and it was horrific against the Packers. And he might have been more efficient than he had been since his rookie season this year. But inspiring tape is Brock Purdy's tape. Inspiring tape is, sections of Lamar Jackson's tape this year. He wasn't great this year, but inspiring tape is sections of Josh Allen's tape this year. I mean, those guys moved the needle with some of what they were doing, and Dak Prescott never really did this year. It was very bleh up until it was downright horrific with those 2 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers. Aikman was never as good as Brock Purdy is this year. Brock Purdy has put up historically good numbers this season. We're talking greatest show on turf Rams. We're talking Peyton Manning like numbers. Troy Aikman never led the league in efficiency. Steve Young was the perennial leader in efficiency back during those years. So Troy Aikman is definitely below what Brock Purdy has brought to the table. Yak average against the Packers this year. It's a good question. Why don't I look up some of the Yak stuff while we're live here? Something I've been wanting to look up for a little while. The Yak defense of the Green Bay Packers. I'm still doing a lot of my statistical research for this game. Opponents yards after the catch per reception. The Green Bay Packers rank where are they? Trying to find that Green Bay Packers logo and this sea of 30. There they are, exactly in the middle. Packers are giving up 5.2 yards after the catch per reception on average. That is the league average, number 16. The Packers are average against Yak, average as far as tackling goes, below average against the pass, below average against the run. It's not an overwhelming defense. The 49ers should be able to score a lot of points in this game. We'll see what the conditions as far as rain do. All we can do at this point is speculate what they're going to be because it seems like about a 50% chance of rain right now in the forecast for Saturday. Mike thinks the 49ers are the only NFC team left that can actually win the Super Bowl this season. That's an interesting theory, and it might be true. Eli's going to his first playoff game. Very excited. Congratulations. Excited for you. I think any game for the 49ers is a yak game. That's the style that the 49ers try to imprint on their opposition. Perez Harris says that Purdy should be the MVP, and he thinks that Purdy will grow to be more mobile in the pocket than Lamar Jackson. Well, we know that Purdy's not as fast on a straight line as Lamar Jackson, but as far as mobility, ability to move within the pocket, he's already right up there with Lamar. I mean, very quick 10-yard split for Brock Purdy. The way that Brock moves is elite. Right? Anybody who watches tape knows that. So that's one of the things that's pushed Brock Purdy into the elite status of NFL quarterbacks. Think the 49ers will have a mix of Mitchell or Mason. I think they're going to have Christian McCaffrey spelled by Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason in case you need him. But I think that Mitchell's ahead of the ahead of Jordan Mason, the finisher, the closer on the pecking order. Don't throw versus Jair Alexander. It's a pick six. I don't know if it's necessarily that dire, but it was an interception for Dak Prescott when he threw against Jair last weekend. Is Dutch Crunch the best bread? I think for a Bay Area style sandwich, it is. Although this sandwich that I had the other day, that wasn't Dutch Crunch. That was a more standard roll, but it was a good chicken, pesto, artichoke sandwich. I'm not the biggest artichoke fan, but it came on the sandwich, so I ate it. The favorite for MVP became who could take down Purdy and the 49ers, not what you did all season, which is, by definition, not the right way to look at the award, but it happens. And all that really matters is the Super Bowl trophy and the Super Bowl MVP, the Lombardi and the Super Bowl MVP. All right. Spreads in Santa Clara has great sandwiches. I'm going to have to look that up. There's also a place in downtown San Jose that's been recommended to me that I'm going to have to check out. I don't think, yeah, Jair hasn't had his best season, that's for sure, but he did have that interception the other day. And it is still Jair Alexander. He could still, I mean, he's still a good player. So even though he's not having his best season, he still is a good player. The most important thing the 49ers have to do offensively in this game is neutralize Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark. If you do that, I think you've got an advantage in coverage against the Packers in the back seven. The 49ers will score. This is just generally. The question is, can Green Bay score enough against the 49ers defense? Yes. I mean, that's why the 49ers are favored. The line suggests no. 49ers favored by 10. 49ers want to be balanced. They want to eat clock. They want to do what Green Bay has been doing so well for the defense, and that is not overexpose their defense. That is the key. That's always the key. Both teams playing a similar style. 49ers definitely have better personnel, though, on the defensive side of the football. Line seems about right for a team that has top five offense and defense in the 49ers against the Packers team that might be a top five offense, but is a bottom 10 defense. Also, the 49ers have that rest advantage against Green Bay. You know, connections. Joe Barry, the Packers defensive coordinator, started his NFL coaching career as a quality control coach on the 49ers staff in 2000 under Steve Mariucci. There's a blast from the past. That was back when Brett Favre and Mike Holmgren were both with the Green Bay Packers, but Joe Barry was with the 49ers and Steve Mariucci. So Barry's been around for a while. Then Barry was on Tampa Bay's staff when Kyle Shanahan started his career as a quality control coach. That was after Barry's with the 49ers. So Kyle Shanahan and Joe Barry know each other from those days with the Buccaneers. always seems to be a family fight between the 49ers and the Packers. So there's your preview. Brock Purdy's 49ers offense against the Green Bay Packers defense. It is 8:10 p.m. Time for me to go get some dinner. Hope you enjoyed this. We're going to have the preview of the other side and a lot more content coming up tomorrow.